Hi, my name is Tracy Willingham, and I am a menstrual and menopause coach. And I am so glad that you are interested in the hormone hierarchy. And the reason for that is a lot of people will start targeting the wrong hormones first, and then that leads to frustration. And so they quit, they don't understand what's happening. And so this is probably one of the most important things if you have any type of menstrual health or menopause health or love anyone who's going through this. Um, it's pretty important to understand these top four hormones before you even consider the ones that we hear more commonly in our society. So we're going to move through quickly, and I'm just going to tell you a few things about what led me here, and then we're going to jump into the material because I don't want to keep you from it very long. So, who am I? I am a licensed social worker, and I'm a menstrual and menopause coach. And I left my full-time job this summer, and I am doing this full-time because I am super passionate about these topics, and you're going to find out why starting next slide. So, um, I am, you will notice as we go through, I do know that you're not supposed to put all your words on PowerPoints, but I want you to be able to go back to this as many times as you want to, and maybe not even necessarily have to listen to my voice. So I put everything on the slides so that you have a replay for it. So, but back to the slides. So most importantly, I put on here, I'm a woman who's been tossed around the healthcare system. And I was getting pretty frustrated with it. There were no answers. I was told I was making it up. I was told it's something you just go through. And that just was unacceptable to me. I didn't quite understand how we have a cure or a pill for everything, but nothing to help me in the 20 plus years with my menstrual cycles or what is looming ahead, which is, I already think I'm in perimenopause and heading next into menopause. So the other thing to also talk about is if a healthcare system that is truly made to benefit someone who looks like me is not meeting my needs, I'm very nervous for those who are part of underserved populations and what that means for them. So I decided I'm just going to go get some certifications and I'm just going to start my own business. And so here we are. So, I have PCOS or polycystic ovary syndrome, and I have insulin resistance conditions. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later so that you can understand a little more of what that means. But there's a picture of me in my 20s with my good friends. I had just been diagnosed with PCOS. They gave me a pamphlet and sent me home. And the pamphlet was very light on what was going to happen. And here I am now at 47, and I'm just now starting to understand what PCOS means and ways to treat it. So that means I went through 20 plus years of hell with my menstrual cycle, and it's going to affect how I get through menopause. And on top of that, I've been denied insulin monitoring devices because I don't need it yet. And that's our whole problem, especially in the US with our healthcare system, is that until you need it, you don't get it. There's not a lot of preventative. And so that was the another reason I got into this business is I'm tired of having to wait for something to happen. Let's get ahead of it. That would be my hope. I want to be the healthiest and feel the best that I can. So my symptoms have interrupted my work attendance, my social commitments, and my health. And so here's a picture of my sweet husband who has actually, over the course of my menstrual cycle, has taken me to the ER. He's had to help me dress before, and he um, has had to actually take care of me when basically whenever these symptoms disrupted my life. And so, it's not necessarily something he signed on for. I mean, if you do the traditional vows, yes, you say in sickness and in health. But, this is something I would hope he had not had to do. And newsflash, now that I've done these certifications, he didn't have to. There are things that I could have been doing. So there's the great question. Any of this sound familiar or similar to your experiences? And even if it hasn't, that's okay. That means your body maybe is being a little more kind to you, but it still means that you should know about these hormones in case they do begin to become an issue. So let's get started. So we have the ability to not only heal our bodies, but also demand better treatment and recognition that hormonal instability is real and disruptive. And there is a lot of, there's a lot of conversation coming out now with like Halle Berry and a couple other stars who are talking about menopause, but it's not like we're still seeing any type of like big action happening, at least in the US healthcare system. So we're going to talk about the big four today. So that's cortisol, insulin, DHEA, and pregnenolone. And you'll see there's 5 circles at the bottom. I'm actually going to do a webinar on those. And so I'll just automatically send this to all of you that have already signed up to see this one. And those are the ones you probably have heard of. Those are going to be ones like estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. And then there's 2 others, but we'll talk about those on the next one. But truly, this last row cannot do anything truly until we get these top 4 in check. So let's look at each one to understand what it is, how it affects us, and all that good stuff so we can get you on a path to maybe feeling better. So why are these the big 4? That was one of my first questions. I'm like, really? Why not estrogen and progesterone? So these 4 hormones control critical processes, and that's the thing you want to remember. So for instance, it says they're like stress response, blood sugar regulation, energy production, and hormone synthesis. Why this is such a big deal is if you think back to our ancestors, when stress hits us at a high level, and one thing to remember is the body doesn't always understand what's good or bad stress. It just knows stress. But back in the days, let's say, you got separated from your village or your tribe, and you're not quite sure where they are, how to get back, all that good stuff. Your body is going to go into basically what everybody loves to talk about, the fight or flight. And basically what the body's job is to do is to shut off things that are not important, or as important, I should say, to make sure that you survive. And so you're going to be experiencing possibly, in the beginning at least, less hunger. You may not notice some other things. So when those hormones take over and basically put your body into survival mode, it says here on the slide, they're imbalanced, and it's going to cause a lot of disruption. So those bottom 5, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, thyroid, and melatonin, they don't even get to do anything. They're disrupted because we need to focus now on your energy, your stress, and your blood sugar. And so that's why it's so important to consider that we get these other things in check first. So let's look at good old cortisol. So when it's elevated due to stress, exactly what I just said, it diverts resources to manage the stress response, often leading to reduced production of sex hormones like estrogen and progesterone. And so I love it that they call it the cortisol steal effect, where basically it's favoring the stress management over your reproductive health. So it doesn't have time to worry about if you're having horrible menstrual cycles, if you are entering perimenopause, you're in menopause, you're post-menopause. It doesn't care, because it right now just knows we got to shut it down and we've got to protect the body. So let's look at some of the things to know about cortisol. So the role, as we have been discussing, it's known as the stress hormone, and it manages your metabolism, inflammation, and your sleep-wake cycle. So this explains why when your cortisol is really high, your sleep cycle's off. You may not even have a sleep cycle. You may have one where you're asleep, awake, sleep, awake. So that's going to be some of the things you might be experiencing now. Symptoms of it. So how do you know if you have high cortisol? These might be some things you're noticing. If you have anxiety, maybe some stubborn belly fat that doesn't want to go away, and then just like we mentioned, insomnia. But you also can have low cortisol. So if you're starting to notice that, you might notice fatigue and salt cravings. And really, it doesn't matter if you're high or low. You need to be at an optimal level. And so that leads us to our next box. In the morning, if you were to test it, you'd want it to be 5 to 23 on the test. And in the evening, you can see that it's okay for it to be a little bit lower. So if you get a test, if you ask for one, or if you just go and get one on your own, then if you got these numbers back, you could kind of see, where is my cortisol at? Now, how do they test for that? There's a lot of different ways. There's a saliva test and a blood test. You can also do the urine collection, which truly, when I worked with a dietitian, she suggested the urine one was the best. But collecting it for 24 hours may not be everybody's definition of fun. And then there's the dried urine, which the Dutch test is pretty amazing and comprehensive. It's very rarely covered by insurance, and it is expensive. I think a friend of mine just had one recently, and she spent $500-600. So some of these may be covered by your insurance, so you may want to consider the route that's paid for. There are different types of labs and packages you can buy on your own at full price if you don't want to mess with your insurance or if you're uninsured. So, how do you manage cortisol? So we talked about some tests. Maybe you're not so much a pill person. Maybe you take enough. Maybe you just want to do it the natural route. That's really what I'm trying to do for myself. So it's not unusual if you're like, I'm done. I'm going to try some other things. And it's okay to try. So some things that you need to do is, when you're highly stressed, is you've got to bring yourself down. And so the way you would do that is through some meditation. And sometimes it's hard to know, like, what meditation, Tracy, do I watch? So there's mindfulness, guided, body scan, breath work, and then progressive muscle relaxation. So that one's going to be like where you start at the top of your head and you slowly release tension in all your body parts all the way down to your feet. The next thing you want to work on is sleep. Now, I am not going to say that this is an easy fix because it is not, but it's something that is important. And so if you can even try deep breathing before bed, avoid late night eating, avoid caffeine in the afternoon and evening. I also have a playlist that I listen to, and it's like a deep sleep playlist. And the nights that I can't go to sleep, I listen to that, and it actually helps. I'm in and out of sleep, but I come out, I hear it for a little bit, and I go back in. So there's some hope to, at least maybe, even if you're coming in and out, some ways that you can try to get sleep. And then I have on here the standard diet, things you can eat to make sure that you are getting a protein-rich breakfast. Now, for all my breakfast haters, or those who are like, oh gosh, I can't eat breakfast, I totally get it. But if you want to see some progressive and major shifts, you're going to need to have a protein-rich breakfast. So I tried to list some things if you're following a standard diet, vegetarian, and then some of my peers in the field are very anti-vegetarian and vegan. They're very pro animal protein. However, I'm of the mindset of, let's just tell you how much you need to eat so that you're getting the same protein. I understand it's not the same as animal protein, but it can be. You just usually have to make sure you're being very targeted with what you're eating. And so to me, I think it's very important to honor the path that people have chosen for their lifestyle. And it's up to us who are getting these certifications to make the content match the way that you feel is best lived for your life. But all that to say, please, if you can, add a protein-rich breakfast in. As an example, there have been women who have, with their menstrual cycles, have mentioned their pain was like a 9 out of 10. And they started adding a protein-rich breakfast, which they were not eating before, and it got down to like a 2 out of 10. So it actually does make change. It also can be very helpful with hot flashes and menopause. So do the best you can. But that's really one way, kind of a easy starting place if you just want to dip your toe in a little bit. So let's look at insulin. So insulin controls the blood sugar levels. And when it's disrupted, it does create an environment that is hostile. And we use that word. It is really hostile to hormones. It's not nice. And so then when you look at the different cycles, what the ovaries are supposed to do, and then what estrogen and progesterone is supposed to do for the body, it's just not going to happen. And that's the cycle I find myself in with PCOS. So even as I'm doing the right thing, when my insulin is off, Everybody else in my body is just like, it's done. So the role is, like we mentioned, blood sugar and energy levels. High insulin, you're going to notice things like weight gain and sugar cravings. And then if you have low insulin, it's going to be dizziness and irritability. An optimal level. So if you do the fasting insulin level, it's going to be around an 8. And then how can you test this? You can do a fasting insulin blood test, a glucose tolerance test. That one's a little rough. I've done that one before, but hey, you gotta do it to figure out what's going on. And then the hemoglobin A1C test. And so I'm hoping these slides will just help you that if you decide to go this route of testing, you know what to ask for, and you can do a little research before you go in to see if there's one that you prefer, or you can call, if you're insured, your insurance to see, is there only one that you guys will cover for this? So for your insulin, some movement that's really good for that is walking, cardio, and strength training. And strength training doesn't mean you have to be like bench pressing 400 pounds. Some of that can just be it still can be very gentle movement. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. Hang on, let me get this to stop bouncing. There we go. I think it'll stop. Okay, sorry. So sleep. Again, I know it's hard, but here are some things just to try. You do want to aim for 7 to 9 hours of sleep. You you can find some pretty successful assistance from magnesium supplements, and I'm using those now. I am not a doctor, and I am not a healthcare person, and I have not reviewed your medical records. So this is my good old liability statement to please talk to a healthcare professional before you just add supplements in, because I don't know the other medicines and your medical history, so I can't tell you if it's safe. However, if they say it's safe, magnesium has been known to be extremely helpful. Your doctor is also going to be really helpful in knowing, do you take it regularly? Do you take it for a month, take a month off? There's a lot of different ways to use magnesium, and that's why it's usually suggested to do that under a healthcare provider's guidance. Use white noise. I love white noise. I have one right beside my bed. And stay hydrated. So you want to look and aim for some insulin supportive foods. And again, I have standard, vegetarian, and vegan. So these are going to be some of your powerhouses. Make sure you're including them into your diet, and make sure you're getting enough of each of those. So DHEA. And so I love it because it talks about how it is the building block to your sex hormones. And so what is a sex hormone? Because, it can that sounds sexy, Tracy. Tell me more. So sex hormones support the body by regulating reproductive functions, sexual development, and maintaining overall health. So this is bone density, muscle mass, and mood stability. So it's not sexy time hormones. It's not necessarily about your libido, although that can be mixed in. This is about a lot more than even just your reproductive health. It's bone density, muscle mass, and even those good old mood stability, which a lot of us need. So as it says, when DHEA levels are low, there's a reduced capacity to produce adequate amounts of estrogen and testosterone, which then impacts your reproductive health and then your overall hormone stability. So the role, as we just mentioned, it's known as the building block hormone, and it's very important to adrenal and reproductive health. So in case you don't know anything about adrenals, there are glands that are located on your kidney, and they have some very specific jobs that they need to do. If your DHEA is high, you might notice you have oily skin or even facial hair. That's so great, as for anyone who identifies as female, facial hair is wonderful. And then low DHEA is fatigue and a low sex drive. Your optimal levels are going to be between 2 and 10. And then the testing is blood, saliva, and then once again, the dried urine Dutch test. Movement. So now you're going to want to do medium intensity cardio. You can do yoga or Pilates, and then once again, strength training. Here we are back to sleep. I know 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Melatonin, again, can be super helpful. Again, I'm not a doctor. Please check with your healthcare provider before adding any supplements. Aromatherapy can be helpful. And then, did you know there's more than just white noise? It's awesome. There's all kinds of different noise. So pink noise is helpful to DHEA. I've been trying to research why. I'm not finding anything strong, but I know there's a reason for it. So I'm going to keep looking into it. But maybe you can give that a good old Google because that's just so interesting to me. And then I've got the supportive foods. Once again, standard, vegetarian, and vegan. And a lot of these are going to be very similar on each slide. But if you have one lab that comes back, let's say your DHEA is too high and you want to bring it down, these are going to be some of the foods that are going to help with that. And so I just wanted it to be a fast reference. All right, so now let's go with the word that's so long, pregnenolone. And I gave you the pronunciation because it took me forever to not sound like from Sesame Street. Do y'all remember that phenomena? That's what I sounded like when I tried to learn this word. But it is a building block to so many hormones. And if those levels are off, it just completely just knocks and impacts the balance and production of what they sometimes refer to as the downstream hormones, which are going to be those 5 that sit under all of these. So, supports brain function. That's pretty important. The symptoms, if you're high, is insomnia and anxiety. If you're maybe low, it's going to be fatigue and memory issues. And now here's the frustrating thing. I'm just going to bring it out into the open. It's so frustrating. You could have anxiety and have, I don't know, 20 plus different things wrong with you. So that's why a lot of this is let's try this and see what happens. Okay, that didn't do anything or that didn't change. Let's try this. So also prepare yourself that this isn't a quick fix and you've got to really commit to doing this if you really want to figure out what's wrong. So your optimal levels are going to be 10 to 200. And then how to test: blood, saliva, and back to the good old Dutch test. So movement, moderate exercise, gentle yoga and stretching, and resistance training. Back to sleep, yes, 7 to 9 hours. Ashwagandha is another good one. I'm not going to repeat my liability because now you all are like, we get it. Drink some herbal teas. Again, herbal teas can be sneaky, so make sure you're checking in on what's in them. Maybe ask your healthcare provider if there's any teas you should be avoiding. A lot of times it's going to be more caffeine than anything, but every once in a while there could be a little herbal guy in there that just throws you out of whack. So again, if you find a couple herbal teas you think you might like, you might just shoot your doctor's office an email or call them and be like, anything to be concerned before I do this. And then the most amazing invention ever, a weighted blanket. It's so crazy what a weighted blanket does for your mental health. It's the best tool ever. So those are some things that might help you with sleep. Gave you the good old standard vegetarian vegan. Y'all are starting to catch on here to the flow. So I gave you a slide on how to talk to your doctor. And I gave you a lot of questions. So I'm not going to run through a lot of them, but I want you to be able to feel like you know what you should ask when you go in. That's the other problem, is a lot of times we don't know enough that when we go in, we're like, hey, I feel weird. What could that be? And it's not even necessarily that healthcare providers are trying to be dismissive, but if you don't give them a lot of information, if maybe you're not asking the right question, it could lead to frustrating interactions. So these are some great questions if you want to make sure that when you go to this visit, you've got it ready to go. I'm also going to show you something here at the end that I'm offering that might be helpful if you are struggling with some of your healthcare visits. Insurance logistics. Now, I am in the US, so I only know about the US. I don't know about other countries, so I apologize up front. But, insurance logistics is an issue here in the US. If you have it, it doesn't even mean that things are great. You could have a really bad plan. So it's not even like insured, awesome, uninsured, not awesome. It's, I have insurance, but it doesn't do anything. So I tried to list if things are typically covered by insurance. And then also there's a couple like on DHEA, you'll notice the blood test sometimes covered, but check with your provider as it's not always considered standard. So there might be times you need your doctor to advocate for you to get something. You might be able to just go to an outside company and purchase it. But, if you have insurance and it'll pay for it, let them pay the cost. I think I did I just didn't want to mess with my insurance. And so I did, I think, a sex hormone and a cortisol test. I spent maybe $200 out of pocket on it. So it can be costly, and if your insurance will pay for it, why not let them cover that cost? So, how can I help you with your hormone health besides doing awesome webinars like this? I do offer personalized guidance, strategies, how to advocate for yourself, and resources. And all of this is going to be available through something I just want to share with you. There is no need to feel like you have to do this. Um, and I plan to do some more webinars. So the webinars are always going to be free. The information is always going to be free. But I also got into this because I want to make a place where people can go and get informed, meet others, and all that good stuff. So I've started an Ignite Wellness Together membership. So it is loaded and it starts November 1st. So you haven't missed anything yet. But I'm going to have monthly webinars. There's going to be videos. There's workbooks. I've made tons of guides. So there's wellness guides, nutrition guides, herbal support guides. There's some challenges in there. So, it might be you read this information, you're like, where am I even going to start? These challenges are meant to guide you to, okay, this is what we talked about this month. Let's try it in actionable steps. And then I have tons of tracking tools that I've built, tools that I think are missing and things that I wish I had to prepare for even, say, doctor's visits. This is always going to roll over. So every month there's certain themes for a menopause track and a menstrual track, and they all roll over into the Ignite Wellness Vault. And then in January, I'm starting a new podcast called That's Not Very Ladylike. And so you will have early access to those podcasts release. There'll be a community where you can connect with others. I'm not saying I'm the all know it, know everything expert. I'm learning as I go. So there are going to be times that anybody in my community may be teaching me some things. So I want it to be a place where we share experiences and talk about what's happening. And then, like I said, I have some nutrition and doctor visit tools. So I have recipes, nutrition guides. The nutrition guides this month are, intro to protein, intro to carbs. And then I have tons of doctor visit prep tools that can help you get your thoughts together, get your questions together so that you can effectively use your healthcare visit to get the information that you need. And I've created forms so that if you didn't get to everything, you can transfer it over so that you're ready for the next follow-up, or if it's a follow-up email. So as a thank you for getting to know me, I'm actually changing this slide. And so I am actually going to include in the email a bigger deal. So because you all signed up for my webinar, I'm actually dropping it down from the 40 a month to 30 a month. There's going to be 3 free 30-minute consults. You get a 1 hour, what I call my Ignite Wellness Power Hour. And that's where the 30 minutes are more about setting goals. What do you want to do? And the power hours are about, let's talk about your specific health and let's start drawing a map and figuring out what's going on. So it opens November 1st. Every month, old content moved into the vault and new information each month for you to read through and try. So I just want you to see for $30, this is everything you're getting. So you'll get 2 webinars, 3 menstrual videos, 4 menopause videos, a challenge for each, 4 herbal guides, 2 wellness guides, 5 tracking tools, 2 question and answer sessions, 9 recipes, 5 nutrition guides, worksheets, 5 mind and well-being guides, 9 recorded meditations. In January, you'll start having my podcast. Then there's a community and then a calendar to download. And so, and it will always be like this every month at that same volume. Some things might change, but it's going to be a volume of information. And the reason is I got into this because I want information at people's fingertips, but I want it to be safe and accurate. And so that's why I started this membership. So you can, in the email that you get from me, there's links that'll take you through to it. There's a new promo code that you want to use. So don't follow this one necessarily. Just know that follow what's in the email. And then in this, you can see how to follow me on Instagram, Facebook. You can subscribe to my newsletter where you'll find out everything that's coming up. You can see my website, which has a bunch of other resources on it that are on top of the membership. And then soon I'll have a podcast QR as I'm currently working on all those episodes to release in January. So I want to thank you so much for going through this with me. I hope this was helpful in understanding these top 4 hormones and why they're important. I will continue talking about these slightly on my website and social medias, but definitely in the membership. So if your interest has been kind of piqued, like I want to know more, that might be a great place to land. If not, you can always check out my website and my socials to see what we're talking about. If you have any questions, please email me back at the email address that this webinar came in. I'm so happy to answer questions. And I hope I'll see you on another webinar as we kind of work together to figure out what is happening in our own bodies and trying to find our optimal health and whatever that means for you. So I will see you next time. Thanks for joining in, guys. I really appreciate it.